You are listening to Shameless Stories, and I'm Nicola Humber, founder of the Unbound Press, soul-led publishing company for magical women writing world-changing books. And we are delighted to be the sponsor of this podcast. So enjoy, magical one.
So hello and welcome to another episode of Shameless Stories, the podcast that talks about the stories that have kept us small and how we're demonstrating life, the other side of it, how we've stepped through our shame and owned it and stepped into that power. I'm delighted to announce as well that my sponsor, the Unbound Press, are now rocking and rolling with us. So we'll be hearing more from them in the future. But I also wanted to introduce to you my latest guest, Marie-Claire Ashcroft. Hello. We're waving for those of you on the audio. We also have this on YouTube as well. Marie, we've just done exactly what I do every single time. We've had a really good old chat before we've come on to record. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself again. Who are you and what do you do?
Hey everyone, my name is Marie-Claire and I am known as the Professional Rebel. I am a photographer and authenticity strategist, and I'm also the host of the most gloriously chaotic chat show on the internet called Fuck It Bucket Friday.
Oh, I love that. What a great title. Amazing. Let's just be with that title for a moment. Where did the idea of Fuck It Bucket Friday come from? Let's go there.
All right, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's 10 years ago now, so in 2015 I started an event called Unicorn Club. And so it was my first sort of diversion from my original business. And I started an event called Unicorn Club, which is grown-ups kids parties, because I realized a lot of adults weren't making time for fun. They're disconnected from their creativity, their inner child. And I know that my sort of childlike sense of wonder helps me be happier and more fulfilled, and not just in a giddier way, but more in a wholesome way, in, you know, holistic, so feeling everything. And I think rather than just focusing on mortgage, money, relationships, let's go out and face paint or joust on space hoppers.
I need to get to one of these parties, I know that.
Basically, before anyone was allowed to come in, I bought a bright pink bucket from B&Q, stuck a really like cheap tacky printed work, I can't speak today, sorry, a little label on it saying Fuck It Bucket, and just encourage anyone to put their problems, their woes, their worries in. And it turned out to be like one of the highlight features. Like literally people were loving, like really cathartically screwing up anything that was on their mind and slam dunking it into the Fuck It Bucket. Literally, I decided to have a look in there. What were people so keen to get rid of? And I realized that people were speaking about the same things, you know, the same sorts of worries, woes, careers, relationships, family, self-perception, that sort of stuff, feeling like they weren't good enough. So a few years later, I decided to start a chat show called Fuck It Bucket Friday, where myself and a guest went live on the internet. It's fully interactive, and whatever comes up, it's like a big pink portal to the universe. Whatever comes up is exactly what somebody needs to hear that day. And it's ended up building a community. It got people through the pandemic. Yeah, and it's just great fun because it's like breaking all the rules of showing up, because we don't have a fancy studio. Things go wrong all the time. I've duct taped guests on phones to microphone stands, this microphone stand here in fact, because Facebook wasn't playing, just to get them on. So it's about embracing imperfection and really showing people that you can show up despite what your head tells you, and you don't have to have everything set in stone, and you can make a difference, and it's great fun at the same time.
Oh, I love that so much. It's just like so shameless.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's all about though, isn't it? I think because you were talking before we came on, it's around kind of dropping the masks. It's one thing, like I've worked in the spiritual space for quite a while now, and since becoming a mum and things like that, there's like, you just, the older you get, the more responsibility you get, and the more we shrink, the more we have to be serious. And I just love the fact that you're throwing, you know, unicorn club parties. Like, I'm there, man, I'm totally there. But I think that's the thing, it's like as you get older you realize that actually you don't need to be that serious to be successful. That's, I guess, being a professional rebel. It's about embracing we're told to sit in boxes, aren't we, from very early on. And I think that's probably where a lot of some people's trauma comes from, because there's so much asked of us at a young age, and then we spend probably the rest of our lives unraveling all of that and going, fuck it.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me a little bit about what the Professional Rebel does, and like your business and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I started out initially as a photographer, and I moved into personal branding photography because I really believe, going back to that sort of being put in boxes and having a bit more fun, I find that if you follow the rules, you blend in, you don't get noticed. But there comes a certain amount of sort of courage to sort of show that inner spark, or show your less serious side, or your more spiritual side, or your more playful side. And so part of my personal brand photography is very much connecting to that inner spark within someone. Sometimes it's something that they hide, you know, they've hidden from the world, and I know exactly how to pull that out. So that's the personal brand work that I do. I also work as an authenticity. Honestly, I can't speak today, I'm sorry. Authenticity strategist. And that's a mix of strategy, coaching, mentoring, because I found with my photography clients and also my own journey, the more you want to show up authentically. Goodness, what is wrong with me today? I promise I've not had a drink.
Fine.
Squashing this pint glass.
You're being who you want, who you now I can't speak to each other. Basically, you are teaching people to be their complete authentic self, and it doesn't matter if you can't speak on a podcast. Like, there's this whole thing around like everything has to be bloody perfect all the time.
Absolutely not.
I'm a recovery perfectionist.
Yeah. Years ago, I would be like, oh, you idiot, I can't believe you couldn't speak. But this is who I am. I get very excited and passionate about what I do. And this is what I'm trying to show people, is that your energy is magnetic. That spark within you is what people go, oh my God, yes, I need to work with that person. She's crazy, or she gets it, or I just want to be in her energy.
Yes.
To the authenticity sort of side of what I do is like, as we've just said, people hold that back, or they feel like they can't show that, or if they take that step forward, their inner critic goes, whoa, no, you don't, get back in your box. And with that comes, it's like carrying a load of rocks up a hill. It really knackers you out if you are carrying all this baggage and faulty self-concept. So I help people tap in and create success on their own terms, and show up in the world as who they want to be, and have those conversations that they wish they were saying that probably cause them to have resentment. So it taps into life and business, not just business. And I speak about this stuff. I host workshops and I have a chat show. And as you can see, this is absolutely everything that I'm about.
I love that so much. So, you know, and this is something we talked about before we came on. I'd love to know what your thoughts are around the word shame, because we did sort of talk about your personal journey. And I feel like a lot of people that come on this show, they have journeyed through the things that they're now teaching.
Yeah. Well, for me, shame is such a visceral thing. For me, shame, I was shrouded in shame before I was even verbal. This is a pre-verbal thing for me. So I'm very open about my journey. I've got complex trauma, and I felt compelled to hide who I was before I could even speak. The people who raised me didn't have capacity for my wholeness. You know, I felt like I had to curate parts of myself. So I was allowed to be mummy's little sunshine. I was allowed to be the happy, no bother, no burden type. But I wasn't allowed to be sad, or I had to like look at what sort of mood people were in. And so for me, shame was visceral. It felt like this weight of heaviness, this hopelessness, this apathy. And for me, it was confused with depression for many, many years, because I had no understanding. You know, for me, I was telling myself that I didn't have any reason to be depressed. You know, I like cranked up happiness to 11, shoved anything else that didn't align under the rug, and then wondered why I was feeling this just tremendous weight that would snap me back whenever I take a step towards something I wanted to do. And that to me was shame. It was less about, I mean, don't get me wrong, I still have an inner critic, but it's not as prevalent as the visceral feeling of just like, oh, life is so heavy. It often felt like there was a block between my true self and the world. It was like, I've described this before, and I heard Russell Brand explain it a few years ago as well. It was like watching the world through like an aquarium. I was never fully part of it. And so it was like I was constantly holding back the fullness of who I was and curating parts of myself to be accepted and loved and approved of. And so that for me is shame. And it's been a pervasive thing my whole life.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And you know, I resonate on every level with regards to that as well, because I think, well, our society, the way that our parents were brought up, you know, the ages that we are, there was a lot of being seen and not heard. You know, the good emotions were always welcome, but the loudness, the tears, the anger, not so much. And that, you know, that's across the board, not just in females, and it was also in males as well, right? We're kind of doing a massive unraveling exercise as a generation. But I understand exactly what you're talking about with regards to the shame piece, because again, it's the reframe. You know, I love to come from the other aspect of that. And I know exactly what you mean around, like, I would always be this kind of person that would just go with the flow, and I'd be this person for that person, and I'd turn into someone else to fit that mold. And I was really good at being a chameleon. I just didn't know who the hell I was in the middle of it all. So I totally get it. And I guess the unmasking piece as well, like let's explore that a little bit more around kind of the external validation, the unmasking, which you're now teaching other people to do. How did that?
I spent my whole life doing what I thought I should. I was that sort of kept away from my true self. I didn't even know how to dream or have desires. You know, anything I wanted was because I saw somebody else in my family or circle do it. So I went to university. I studied 7 languages. I got a job working in export. I was literally in an office shipping oil additives around the world to companies like Shell and ExxonMobil and BP, and sorting out trucking and documents. And I was just a square peg in a round hole. I was like the office zany weirdo. And again, that was a mask to be, you know, not threatening and likable, but I just felt so disconnected from who I was. I mean, you know, you only need to look around my office or my social media to see how creative and bright I am. Parts of that came with me, but it was very sort of like, oh, I'll just let a little bit of that out. Oh, is it safe to be like that? And what happened was, the further away I moved from my true self, the worse my depression got. It was like it was a GPS, like, you are going in the wrong direction. Do a U-turn, do a U-turn. And all I felt was this depression, this hopelessness. You know, there was a few times driving to work where I just thought, what if I just went? So I wasn't happy at all. And I knew that my life didn't look bad on paper. So what was wrong? I also had no memories of my childhood because of the PTSD. So I picked up a camera and thought, I'm going to connect back to life. I'm going to use this to photograph the good times, because I keep forgetting them. It was like my brain was blocked from remembering them.
Right.
So I picked up a camera, started taking photographs. It was like a visual gratitude diary. This is a way to sort of remind my brain or my body that life isn't as bad as I just felt all the time. And it turned out I was actually really very good at it. So I left the job eventually, set up my first business, Fluke Photography, again, sort of like tying into that, not believing that someone's going to find out eventually that I haven't learned this properly or I'm a fraud. And I thought I took the steps. You know, I left corporate, I set up a business, I was working all around Chester as an event photographer, a wedding photographer. The first wedding I'd photographed was the first wedding I'd ever been to. So it was like literally seat of my pants, throw myself in the deep end. And the camera sort of became my bridge to connect with people, because I felt so unworthy. I was like, oh, if I bring my camera, people will welcome me. And I was connecting with people in the wrong way. I was, again, presenting only the zany, the lovable, look at how crazy I am. sort of parts of myself. And it wasn't until a few years into it, the business was quite successful. I'd photographed in New York, and I was on the way back from New York. I'd photographed weddings in Paris, in Greece. I was doing all the things that I thought I wanted to, but on the way back from New York, I literally broke down crying. I had a cup of tea, and it wasn't anywhere near as good as an English cup of tea. But I don't think that was the reason I started crying. I didn't want to come home. I hated everything that I'd created. And I had to look at myself and go, what is going on? And I literally had to connect back to who I was and learn to feel my feelings, because I wasn't doing that. I was pushing out happiness and pushing out energy and excitability and lust for life, but any other feeling, I just pushed it under. And what had happened, I'd got to the point where, well, if I wasn't feeling any of my bad feelings, and air quotes, because none of them are bad, they don't feel fun, but they aren't bad, I stopped feeling anything at all. I was completely numb. I was living in functional freeze, and I had to get in touch with things like meditation, playfulness, creativity, journaling, using photography in a different way to sort of connect with other people authentically. I had to learn, and the scariest thing for me was having to learn how to feel my feelings, get in touch with the sadness, the anger, speak up for myself. And I learned to do this in my business. So it was kind of like, as I was learning, I was sharing with other people and bringing people on the journey with me. So everything that I've learned, I share along the way. And I think that's kind of what has built a lot of trust and authenticity. My fans and followers and people who like what I do, they trust me because I don't bullshit them.
Yeah.
I tell them where they're going to trip up. I tell them how your mind will sneak up on you, or how maybe you're going down the wrong route. But, at the end of the day, it's up to you to sort of follow that. But I'll chuck my 2p's worth in there.
It's always good because it sounds quite similar to the way that I work in PR, because photography is just that next level, isn't it? It's the visual amplification of the individual, and the PR piece is the story aspect of that. Yeah. So it goes beautifully together. But what I've always found in a PR sense is when somebody's not being completely true to themselves, here's in the press is not something they want to see, or it's something that they feel very uncomfortable. And often I'm the scapegoat. I'm not that person. It's like, well, maybe you're just not okay with that. Yeah. Have you ever had that, with the photography piece, they've seen themselves and gone, that's not me, or have it's a weird way of
I've had people who've been absolutely delighted with the photos and literally poured out, but then their inner critic has gone, oh, I'm not safe enough to show up that way. Yeah. And they've absolutely tried to take it out on me and bully me and all sorts. I was like, mate, I've got receipts. You sent me miles of messages saying how amazing they were, and even bought more photos. They can't be that bad.
Yes, exactly. My husband says it beautifully. Well, that's what you look like. Okay, I probably need to get over that.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I think we're taught that there are business rules, and we're a lot of branding people say, oh, you're only allowed to position that side of yourself or that facet of yourself, and that's great if you want to just show up as a squeaky clean perfect version, and that's fine, because I can't imagine Lloyd's Bank or something showing themselves on a piss up on a team outing kind of thing.
Yeah. We could go back to another piss anyway.
I think, these days, in the day of, there's so many businesses online, there's so many people doing the same sorts of things that we're doing. There's AI, there's filters, there's ChatGPT. We're losing that touch to the true self. So I think, your authenticity is the only real currency to connect to people and learn to trust people, because I've seen conversations where people have hired, say, a coach, for example. Their content looks amazing, but ChatGPT wrote it all.
Yeah.
And then they can't actually coach on a call or get their words together.
There are journalists out there that won't accept content that's been created that way. And I have to applaud them, because, where's the creative integrity? It's great. It's a great tool to help cut a few corners, you do need to pour yourself into that stuff. Anyway, that's a totally different podcast. We could go there another day, definitely. So, I mean, we've talked about kind of, so what would the word shame mean to you? I think we've kind of touched on it very briefly, but like when you go, like going back to your fuck it bucket story with the pink bucket, what are the kinds of things that you were seeing? Because I suspect a lot of that is those bad emotions.
Yeah, well, we've got things like, I'm really happy in my career, but my home life is going to shit, or I'm sick of never feeling like I'm enough, or my friend did me threw me under the bus, or I don't feel happy in my life. What's wrong with me? So there's a lot of the regular things like money and life progression, but then there's a lot of that self-image and perception in there as well, or feeling like people have mistreated them. And
so it goes back to that kind of external validation piece. For most people, it's about not being good enough in other people's eyes, in which, like, the work that you're doing with your photography is amplifying that too, right? So I feel like there's an element of the listeners, that people that are listening to this, how can we help them be more themselves? Have you got any tips?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think firstly, it starts with being honest with yourself. And if you're not feeling brave enough to, do a live on the internet or go on a podcast to sort of say all of this stuff, start with the journal. If it needs to be locked or password protected, that's fine. But just start by letting your innermost thoughts come out, because it's only when you start connecting with yourself. I mean, you probably can't see because it's out of shot here, but I've got 10 years worth of journals that helped me go, why am I feeling like this today? And I think there's no escaping seeing these similar stories repeat and repeat and repeat. You're like, when they're in your head, you maybe don't notice that you keep repeating the same things again and again and again. But when, for like 3 months in a row, you're saying how your partner's pissing you off, that perhaps you might need to have a brave conversation. Or you keep saying about how your job is making you unhappy, then it's time to sort of address that rather than just let it sort of percolate in your head all the time. And the good thing about that is a lot of the time we don't know what we want, but we're really good at knowing what we don't want. So sometimes the first step in finding out what you don't want is by moving away from it. And that's what I did in all my relationships. Didn't know the ideal man that I wanted, but I certainly didn't want a boyfriend like the last one. I upgraded till I got to a nice one.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I think that's the other thing. It's like knowing what you don't want is half the battle. And it could be so easily solved if we kind of just went, I don't want this, this, and this. Then we wouldn't have to go through it. Like, I wish there was sometimes a shortcut. It's like, do we have to go around this loop again?
We get stronger in understanding what we don't want. And I think sometimes we have to get so annoyed and pissed off with ourselves to take the action sometimes. And, because we're always going to take the slightly easier route because we're so, especially nowadays, we've got so much going on that sometimes it does help to have that. It's that like fiery fuel of anger. You can actually use it rather than shout at someone, use it to propel you forwards to take action.
I love that. No, it's so true. Like, you're speaking my language. It's so true. Is there anything particular you'd like to share today? Anything that's speaking to you? Because I'm loving your story.
I'd say that it really is worth going on the sort of journey to connect back to yourself, because all of the niggles and things that are upsetting you or that you keep putting under the carpet. We have a saying at our house, hair bubbles on a horsey. We were trying to explain stress to my partner's youngest, and we were piling up hair bubble on a little horsey, hair bubble on a little horsey, hair bubble on a little horsey, until they all fell over. And it's like, you can handle, a little bit of dissatisfaction. You can handle a little bit of, oh, this is annoying me a little bit. But when there's loads of different hair bubbles on your horsey, they're going to fall over. And life's just too short to cope with that and live with that every day. So just take one little step, look at one of your hair bubbles, address something, have that conversation, because the more you connect with people, the more you connect with, whether it's your clients, your partners, your friends, and have those honest conversations, just the richness of it's that feeling of aliveness. Everyone's going around feeling half asleep because they're shoving everything under the rug. Feeling alive to not only childlike wonder, but like a big stinking tantrum one day is what makes us human. And stop shaming anything that you feel is not accepted. Like don't apologize when you have a cry. Don't apologize when you're angry. Obviously don't take it out and say something. Don't take it out and say something horrible to someone, but learn to use that constructively. Your emotions are powers. They guide you in all the best ways. And it's just take that journey back to yourself and stop living for other people.
So how can people work with you? How can they find you?
Best place to start is my website, www.professionalrebel.co.uk. And I twat around on Facebook a lot of the time. My personal profile, so feel free to add me. It's just Marie-Claire Ashcroft. I post wisdom, I post adventures, even if you never choose to work with me. I mean, obviously, please do hire me for photography or coaching, or watch Fuck It Bucket Friday. But if not, just enjoy somebody who's having fun, being playful. And I get a lot of people who probably will never work with me, but just enjoy somebody living authentically and feeling inspired by that.
Love it. And I will put all the information in the show notes, but I mean, this always happens. I just could talk to you all day. So we can't though. I'm really sorry. We have to go. I'm going to just wrap up the show and then hopefully carry on the conversation after we finish recording. Anyway, thank you for listening to this episode of Shameless Stories. So grateful for you joining me today, Marie-Claire. I'm loving your energy and just your lust for life. It's just so needed. And anyway, so I will put the information in the show notes and see you in a week's time when we'll send out another episode of Shameless Stories.
Thank you. Bye.